We'll call to order the meeting of the Board of Franklin County Commissioners for Wednesday, March 29th.
Commissioner Howard?
Present.
Vice Chair Renaud?
Present.
Chair Waymire?
Present.
Commissioner Oglesby?
Present.
Commissioner Dunn?
Present.
If you would please stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance, remain standing for the invocation, which will be led by Dr. Thomas Swafford of the Wellsville Baptist Church. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's pray. Father God, I just thank you for each one who's here today. I thank you for the business that they conduct on our behalf. I thank you, Father, for our government who does the very best that they can. I thank you for their families and for the time that they put in here. Father, bless them, touch them, and give them guidance in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you. Correspondence and organizational business.
I've got a letter here from Clark County, Kansas, thanking us for sending Radcliffe out there. As you all know, Clark County had a very, very large fire that required resources from across the state. Alan went out there and volunteered several days of his time, and this board is just, or this letter is just Clark County expressing its gratitude to the board. Beyond that, I don't have anything this morning.
All right, thank you. That brings us to public comment. Do we have anyone under general public comment?
No general public comment.
All right. Next is the consent agenda. Today's consent agenda would include tax change orders in the amount of a positive?
Yes.
All right, positive $1,082.18. And payroll for the period of February 21, 2017 through March 20, 2017 in the amount of $1,010,388.92. Is there a motion, as well as the minutes of our commission meeting for March 22nd? Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Make a motion that we approve the consent agenda. Second.
Commissioner Howard?
Abstain from the March 22nd commission meeting minutes and vote yes on the claim vouchers, tax change orders, and the payroll.
Commissioner Renaud?
Yes.
Commissioner Oglesby?
Yes.
Commissioner Dunn?
Yes.
Chair Waymire?
Yes. Our first item of business is a discussion of National Public Health Week. Midge Ransom, our Health Department Director, is here to fill us in on the details.
Well, good rainy morning. That's a positive for our community, the rain, so I'm glad to see that. Next week is National Public Health Week. If we want to bring attention to public health, the role we play, some of the issues in our community by some activities that we're doing next week. The American Public Health Association sponsors National Public Health Week, and the theme for this year is Healthiest Nation by 2030. Currently, our nation is 34th globally in health, 34th with the highest medical expenditures of any country, and yet that's the best we can do. So there's lots of progress we need to make and can make to improve the health of our communities. The activities we have planned, with your approval for one of them, is we're going to focus on water and the importance of clean water and drinking lots of water as opposed to some of the other beverages. We're going to do that on one day. We'll have water to give away in the office. We're not going to go hand it out on the street corner, but we have water. We just want to focus on the importance of water in our daily lives. We also are going to do some social media storms on tobacco. We, in our county, have one of the higher tobacco use rates in the state, which is still the leading cause of preventable death and disease. And yet the focus on tobacco use has decreased over the years. We want to, bring that back to light, that is a significant concern to us in our community. So we'll be talking about tobacco use, and its consequences. On Wednesday, we're going to kick off our 6 months of weekly walks that are being promoted and sponsored by community organizations. So the health department is sponsoring the first 4 walks. We have a calendar, and we'll be publishing that, and if you haven't seen it, we'll get that to you, of the daily walks we're going to have. We're sponsoring them. ECAN is sponsoring one, the hospital. We have different organizations that are going to sponsor and lead those walks at different times, but every Wednesday for the next 6 months. And along with that 6-month promotion, we have a 6 pairs giveaway. So if people participate in our walks, they can enter every time they walk or bike with us, and they'll have a chance to win a pair of athletic shoes that month. So we'll do that once for the next 6 months. So we hope everybody will get out and walk and bike and participate with us for active living, because we also know, in addition to tobacco, lack of physical exercise is another leading cause of disability, of illness, and early life lost. On Thursday, we're going to focus on the environment and the importance of environment and the relationship between the environment and our health. It's huge. So that, again, will be a social media storm. And then on Friday, I forgot something else on Wednesday. On Friday is our First Friday bike ride. So again, we want everybody to come ride with us. On Wednesday as well, with your permission, we want to offer here, after the commission meeting, a variety of fruit smoothies for your breakfast. So we'll be giving out fruit smoothies. So everybody come, and because we want to focus on nutrition that day as well, and making proper nutritional choices and increasing fruits and vegetables in your daily diet. So that's what we have going on, and we just hope everyone will participate with us in National Public Health Week.
That's for whoever attends the meeting.
Whoever attends the meeting.
Yeah.
Yes, whoever attends the meeting. So.
Midge, I have a question. Where do they come up with the numbers to put our county in a certain place on tobacco use? It looks to me like surveys. Where did that come from?
Some of the behavioral data, in fact, the county health rankings is just being released today, the new ones for 2017, and we unfortunately have dropped a little bit in the rankings. But the behavioral portion of that, most of that comes from the Behavioral Risk Survey, which is a randomized survey across the state and we have just enough population and enough sample here to be included locally at a county level. So it is a random phone call survey. They ask people, do you smoke, or do you chew, or do you use tobacco, and for how long? And they ask a variety of those questions. They also ask height and weight and those things, from which they get an estimate of weight, overweight issues, active living, all those kinds of things. Yep. So. All right.
Any other questions for Midge? Correct me if I'm wrong, Derek, but I don't think there's anything we need to vote on.
No.
As long as we're all okay with what Midge outlined. Well, thank you.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for your time. Our second item of business is to discuss a proposed budget for tourism service. John Cohen from the Ottawa Area Chamber of Commerce is here to present.
Honorable Commissioners, Honorable County Clerk, Mr. County Administrator, I want to start with a question to Derek real quick. Do they have the financials that I sent you yesterday afternoon? I told you I'd print them, but I forgot to include it in the packet.
I sent them via email to my board. Now, whether they have them in front of them, I don't know.
Okay. I've got a copy on electronically here. I'll verbalize it, but make sure that you've got a copy. And I apologize for getting when I copied this, when I printed this out this morning, I just forgot to include that in the queue. So I can verbalize them and then ask if you have questions, but I'll make sure you get a copy.
And if they have access to their email, certainly they can pull it up.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate
Our
that.
noses are in our computers while you're talking. It's not because we're ignoring you, so.
Don't worry. I get it. I've got 4 kids, so they ignore me all the time. No worries. Well, thank you again for the opportunity to continue the conversation. Susan Rader and I will start by kind of giving a presentation of where we are for the month of February, and then go in to just kind of a continuation of where we left off last week, a week ago today. So I'd like to characterize February as mostly the dust settling from the transition, which was in January, where we were having to get utilities transferred, bank accounts changed, kind of an understanding or helping the volunteers understand the vision and what was actually taking place, and just kind of getting our arms around a big situation. During the month of February, we've gotten more down to the work of tourism and travel. We've been negotiating and are prepared to work with the same publisher that did the 2017 guidebook. We have a commitment from them that even though we're late in the game, that they can be published and have a publication for us in the month of August, which is before all our big community events, the 2 car shows, Wellsville and Ottawa, the Ladies' Night Out, the Antique Tractor Pull, and it's also at the same time that all our schools, all our USDs and Ottawa University and Neosho County are reassembling to start school in the fall, so there tends to be a few more visitors in town as parents move young people to town and as people come to town for the start of school, so and athletic activities. So we do have a commitment that we'll have that in August. We have renegotiated and signed the billboard signs out on I-35, and we do need to change those skins. We realize that, but it hasn't been a priority. There have just been so many things on the agenda that they're not bad, but we just think they need to be refreshed, and I've had that conversation with the proprietor of that about doing that. Coincidentally, the 5-year printer agreements of both organizations are both expiring. I think Commissioner Oglesby brought up about the opportunities for economies of joining the 2 organizations, and this has been the first and biggest, clearest opportunity to save some dollars by putting that in one contract. We'll still have 2 printers, but we're downsizing one of the printers and trying to realign the actual printing numbers, so it should save the combination of the 2 organizations approximately a total of $700 a month over the 2 organizations. So that in the course of a year, that's significant. That's an example. I think there'll be others, but bear in mind that when we have 2 locations, all the economies of joining together are not there because we're always going to have 2 sets of utilities and et cetera, et cetera. So not all the economies are there, but there are going to be opportunities to take advantage of as we go forward. There have also been a plethora, and I don't think probably any more than normal, but bear in mind that Susan and I are both kind of first going through this for the first time ourselves. There's just numerous trade shows that take place in the region, mostly in the state, but regionally in the metropolitan area, in which we have or have not participated in previously, and so trying to make a determination which of these have value, along with publications to do print ads, and also there's a lot of trade organizations and professional organizations, and determining which conferences would provide benefit, which is beneficial for the community for us to participate in, those types of things, decisions that we've been working on. We continue to have general discussions regarding social media, branding, web page, but have not moved that direction to a great degree for a couple of reasons. And one is we realize the conversation needs to expand to a larger group. We need to make sure that all areas of the county and more or less activities of the communities are represented somehow in the conversation as we go forward. And we like the addition of, in the proposed agreement between us, to move towards what state statute says. And we also liked Commissioner Renaud's suggestion earlier of making sure that all commissioner districts are represented. So we like that, and we'll continue to work in that direction, but until we have a permanent agreement, we just haven't asked people to make the commitment yet. So that group is not expanded. And so that's kind of the second point, is that until we have a working agreement with what the expectations of deliverables are in conjunction with the costs associated with providing the services that we're ready to move forward. So I want to emphasize these financials that for February represent a continuation of services that have always more or less existed without the expansion of any kind of, without the expansion of the vision that we had in our proposal. So with that said, let me review the February financials, and there again, if you don't have it in front of you, I apologize. But there were $15,000 of county appropriations for the month of February. I realized that the agreement was $10,000, but due to policies of when checks can be cut, we were running into the situation that at the end of the month, we didn't have enough dollars to do payroll. We were just running, we were at a positive balance in the checkbook, but to do payroll and start the expenses for, to pay the end of January expenses, we needed additional funds. So there was an additional $5,000, which is, as you look down through the expenses, the total expenses were $9,193, which was just $800 some over the agreed $10,000. So we're running real close to what we thought we would, but it was an additional $5,000 that was distributed from the county TGT funds to just kind of help us transition each month. And I think the new agreement maybe even speaks to that just a little bit, the new 60-day agreement, that is. There was $800, which represents actually some of January. Those come in our backlit, which is that kiosk sponsorships and room rentals. Susan will detail that just a little bit more here in just a minute, and a little bit of rent income. So then the expenses, as I mentioned, are fairly much as we described they would be. The management fee, wages, and then I mentioned that we were considering a lot of dues, publications, and memberships. You can see that that takes up a big part of what the expenses were in February, for a total expense of $9,193 for net income, bearing in mind there's an additional $5,000 distributed of $6,676. And the annual figures reflect that too. We were a few $100s ahead in January, and another 100 plus the 5,000 ahead in February. So for the month, we're at the end of the month, we were $7,180 ahead. And I'll just remind you that that money remains in a fund that is completely and only transient guest tax. We've created another fund for sponsorships and things like that to flow into, just so that there's not any question about where the dollars are, or that they're available at such time we move to dissolve our agreement or whatever. But I guess having said that, I just want to emphasize that this providing of services, which in essence is a $120,000 contract, does not include any social media, web design, branding, helping any of the other communities with social media. It's just a delivery of services of what's kind of been we've expected to. And I'm going to let Susan talk here in just a second just to describe what that delivery of services is entailed for the month of February. And that when we do agree on what the vision is and how we communicate that, that's going to add a dimension to the expenses. So in summary, I just want to say we're anxious to establish a long-term agreement. I know you are too. I know, as is the county administrator, we've all expressed that. So I just thank you for the opportunity to continue the conversation, and we'll continue to work towards a more permanent agreement. And before I go on, I'm going to allow, first of all, are there any questions on the budget or on the finances that?
One question.
Yeah, Roy.
On your utilities, they almost doubled from January to February. What's going on?
So, without looking at that line item, I do know that we got a lot of in statements and then new statements, and we had to reestablish service, even though there wasn't a lot of, with Hinkley Water, so there was a kind of a deposit fee that, even though nothing changed, they didn't come and pick up the cooler. They aren't dropping off additional, but because the name changed on the service agreement, there was an additional fee for that. So those are some things that were additional, but without specifically looking at it, I think it's mostly just the transition of finishing up old bills, receiving new utility statements, but I can look at that closer.
I just got
Yeah.
it out that
Yeah,
increased so much.
I appreciate you pointing that out. It did change about $400, but the,
One big part of that was our copy machine, the color, they charge us for our color copies and for our black and white copies, and that comes due at intervals throughout the year, and I think that was one of those big bills that was close to $200.
okay.
That's
I know that the transition of the Hinkley Water was near $300 just to transition that. And like I said, we didn't do anything different, but that's just kind of the deal.
Any other questions for John?
So I'm going to pause for a minute and allow Susan to give her monthly report then.
Good morning.
Morning, Susan.
I'm sure you all have had the copy of the marketing report that Janet was kind enough to hand out. Big referrals this month are still for maps. People still like that piece of paper, so it's interesting to see. We've got the new 2017 map, so if you need a new Kansas map, I know Randy was in to get one, so the rest of you can come on in. It was exciting to have Wolf Creek Power Plant come for their annual meeting, and I think they were really pleased with our hospitality, with the comfort of the room, as well as the convenience, and I hope that they will return. Tomorrow morning, I've got to be at the Visitor Center at 7:15. You all can pop in and say hi to me in that time frame if you'd like. But we have Kansas State University coming for the first time, and we're working with our caterer to provide them a breakfast. So it's an exciting, different opportunity for us. It's something that they've never done before, and we look forward to a continuing working relationship with them. I'm sure you all had an opportunity to take a look at the newspaper yesterday. I just want to brag a little bit. We had Mr. Bill Pierce riding into our community looking for spring. He is actually riding his bicycle, recumbent bike, from Mexico all the way back home to Canada. He's a dual citizen, and he chose to spend a couple of days in Ottawa. And I was just thrilled to have an opportunity to share my wonderful community with him. We got to go to the courthouse, and Janet was kind enough to let us go upstairs. We took a look at the Magna Carta exhibit. He was thrilled with the opportunity to visit some buildings on Ottawa campus. He received a key to the city. He found that a little bit disappointing because it didn't open anything, but he did have a good time with that. We also had an opportunity to meet John at the Chamber. He was able to enjoy some wonderful barbecue at Smoke Creations. I know that he was very impressed with the fact that our local radio station and our newspaper were kind enough to grant him some time. And this gentleman left with a feeling that he had driven by Ottawa on I-35 quite a few times, and he told me in an email that he's going to be back. And that's, to me, a success story. We got him here, we showed him what we're about, and he said, you know, Midwest hospitality is always wonderful, but he said we went above and beyond, and so I'm really proud to be able to say that we were a part of that. I thought it was really interesting, too. I don't know if you looked at the letter to the editor. We had a young individual writing, requesting some information about Kansas. His grandfather actually came into the visitor center yesterday and obtained some a paper map, and some. We gave him some postcards about Kansas, some information about our local heritage. We do work with the Freedoms Frontier, so we have a lot of that information there in our building as well. And it was wonderful to be able to share with our youngest individuals something about our great state that we all sometimes take for granted. So it was really fun to be able to participate in that. We had quite a few people come in who were doing staycations over spring break, and we were excited that they felt that we were a local resource of giving them some ideas of things to do. So we love to see that. I participated in the Northeast Kansas meeting yesterday in Merriam, Kansas. This is a group of people, Baldwin's included, Lawrence, Lewisburg, getting together to kind of form a coalition. There's no charge currently for that group, but we kind of pool our resources and pool our ideas. We are actually going to be in the same tent together when we do the Kansas Sampler, and that was what the focus of our meeting was last week, getting some ideas on how we can really let people know what a wonderful part of our community we are involved in. And one of the big things that I'm working on right now is working on increasing our quilt block tour that we have. I'm working on getting a new group together to go forward with that. We currently have 41 blocks, but there's a lot of interest out there, so I want to continue that program. Also, we've got the solar eclipse that's going to be taking place August 21st, and I feel like we really need to jump on the fact that we will have an opportunity to view that here where other parts of Kansas will not. And so I'm hoping to reach out to our local schools, to the city, and to the county to see if there's some way that we can do some kind of celebration here to capitalize on that natural event that'll probably occur only once in our lifetime. So, any questions that I can answer for you at this point? Okay. Thank you.
Do we have public comment on this one?
We do.
Those will take that.
Jean?
Gene Hurt, 107 Jefferson Street, Pomona, Kansas. Which one are we under? You got two of them on here. Which one is this that he just gave? Is this the budget, or is this for the 2-month agreement?
This is the second item of business.
So it's the budget. Okay. First, before I get into that part, I want to talk a little bit about what's taking place. Yesterday, around 3 o'clock, and I seen it earlier in the week on Monday, that on the internet it wasn't proper. You couldn't download nothing. Okay, so I was nice enough to wait until yesterday, till the last moment, to see if it would be put on for us people out in the real world to know what is going to be proposed. But I couldn't download it. So I called Joy in the office where Derek works, and I told her, I said, what's wrong with the internet? Well, she didn't say there was nothing wrong that I can tell, so she went and tried to do it. You couldn't do it. So she did her deeds trying to get it to talk to the right people, to try to get it on there. So for us people could see this of what is going to be. Well, evidently then, I guess, they don't have the budget ready and on paper to be put on the internet. So what I ask, and I appreciate Joy went to work and she gave me a copy of it. However she did it, I know it was a lot of hard work, but I want to know what it is. And I still don't know it because I don't have the sheet that Derek passed out to you commissioners. So what I would like to do on this issue now is I want it read. I want this read to what Derek passed out to you for this funding, so that everybody that's listening out there or see it on the cable, that they will see how this funding's going to be. And I hope the commissioners do the right thing here, that we ought to have to see this before you make your judgment on it. That's the way I see it, because I haven't had a chance to look at this properly at all. Yeah, well, that's nice to get it now.
That's a copy of the one that was proposed last week. That's the
Well, yeah,
document
he
you
gave
already
that
have.
to me last week. This is the same one.
That's the
then.
same one.
Okay, fair enough. But that don't tell me what I want to know. I am a member of the Chamber of Commerce, like many people, and a lot of people have talked to you about this. We want to know what this is. You know, is it 10,000 for 1 month, or is it 2 months, 10,000, from what I at least see here in advance? I'm not trying to make a problem for the Chamber of Commerce or the commissioners. I want to know what is going on with these figures. Now, I think I've said enough on this part of it, but, you know, this is, with all the discrepancies and everything else that nobody knows about, what happened last Wednesday, or anything else. But, you know, I feel I had that right because it was not on the internet, and it wasn't Joy's fault. It was just one of those things that happens with the computers that don't put it on the internet for us to be able to download. So that's what at least I asked for. Thank you.
Any others?
No.
If I can speak to that briefly, Cole, what I just disseminated to my board is the exact same proposal that John came in with last week. In meeting with John, he indicated to me that he has not prepared an updated budget, or at least he hasn't reduced it to paper, or at least I don't have a copy of it. So what the board has is what you have in your hand, Gene, which is what was posted last week on our agenda. It wasn't posted again today because of the aforementioned technology problems that we were having yesterday. So with that in mind, I wanted the board to have this in front of them this morning so that they have something to look at as John continues his presentation. So
Reference material. All right, John, do you need to wrap up?
So now, as we move kind of into the second part of the discussion, I want to first of all characterize it as a continuation of the discussion of exactly where we left off a week ago, where you requested some additional information and where I've had the opportunity to meet with my executive committee and have further discussion. And three of the four are represented here this morning, and I think you know them, but for the record, I want to introduce Sean Turner, who was the president of the chamber last year, remains on the executive committee as the past president. Tim Van Leeden, who is the current chairman of the board of the Chamber of Commerce. Carla Beanhoff could not be here this morning because of work, but she is the chairman-elect and will take over in January and as the next chairman. And because we do 3 years in advance, Brian Goudreau is the president-elect, I guess. We call him a vice president, but that's how the Chamber Executive Committee works in queue. I use them for consultation and for advice, especially on matters like this. So they're here to help support my efforts. I might ask them to make comments at the appropriate time to help further explain where we are in all this. But I wanted to start out, again, as I started out last time, talking about the proposal. And instead of providing the proposal like I did last time, I tried to bullet point all the deliverables that are available in the original proposal. I don't know if we want to spend a lot of time talking about that, but some of the things that we're talking about, mostly talking about creating the vision in our discussion. When I presented the expenses and the finances for the month of January and then today for February, I think we can agree that if we, the Chamber acknowledges that to just do that, a budget of 155 is not needed, absolutely, if that's what we're doing. But in the proposal that we put forward, we created a vision that not only talked about connecting the trails, but also making a stronger digital footprint for our community so that when people are traveling, searching, thinking about visiting, that they have a fully accessible web page that is current, that it is fully integrates with mobile devices, and that in some part or in some way brands our community. And that's more than just branding the Visitor Center. This will be a branding discussion that will also involve the Chamber of Commerce and what I hope will involve the other communities, so that when people see the brand, they'll recognize that they came and spent a weekend biking or hiking in our community, and then they'll see a brand associated with, say, the Richmond Fair or Jayhawker Days, and they'll say, oh yes, I remember that community, that's where we biked and hiked. Let's go down there, attend that event, and do some more biking and hiking that weekend. So that's some of the overarching visual effects that are the overall arching vision that we're trying to create with making a single brand that stamps our community as that's accessible to the outdoors. And to that extent, there are several things that on these bullet points that speak specifically to that. The first one especially, to establish market research through surveys, monitoring visitor digital footprints through website and digital analytics, and to promote Franklin County as a destination to explore, shop, and visit. And I went with the second bullet point specifically because it's a big part of our presentation or our proposal, is that we want this to be a partnership with the governing board, the ultimate governing board of the transient guest tax. And so we're promising transparency, and I said last month, and I believe last week too, but whatever you're needing in reporting, whether that's weekly, monthly, quarterly, we are happy to comply with that, and we'll continue to work to get you the information that you're requesting so that you know that what we're saying in our deliverables list is happening. We'll continue to manage and oversee the visitor center, and that's kind of what the income and expenses represent. I referenced, we're continuing to work with publication of local brochures and establishing a new guidebook. Susan is doing a great job of coordinating the volunteer hours and maintaining an up-to-date community calendar. But another thing that we want to promise going forward is more help to all of our communities for any event that they are staging there to help them with a social media presence. I think that you can just go so far with print media exposure, but having a Facebook event page to promote through Twitter and even Instagram events that are going on is the way that we attract a new generation. And millennials, as they are almost fully into the workforce now, and as they start to have disposable income and are seeking ways of entertainment, they're looking for ways to be in the outdoors and to participate in activities that aren't necessarily located in the metropolitan area per se, but in the metropolitan region. And that's what we're proposing and have to offer. And we think that to get to that group, that we have to create a stronger social media presence. That includes a modern, up-to-date web page and establishing a marketing process through branding, aggressive social media delivery. Another thing that it involves is seeking grants. I know that grants are available when it comes to improving the health of our communities. I think Midge Ransom could corroborate what I'm saying here. Trails are an identifiable way to get people active, which helps in all areas of health. And so health insurance companies that have foundations or hospitals that have foundations, there are organizations where grants are available. And when we start talking about connecting the trails and making the trails more accessible, providing items such as an all-weather, year-round, all-time, 24/7 kiosk, which has restroom facilities and the ability to pick up brochures, as they always have, and also to have snacks and nutrition drinks available, would be a great addition and something that we could probably write grants for to help get funded. So that's a big part of what we're proposing going forward. Again, we want to establish market research and maintain another promise, but I think this was one that had previously been performed, was maintaining a good working relationship with the hotels and the travel industry as it exists, and then to continue to represent Franklin County and our community in state-related events and regional events that are related to tourism. So last time, some of the conversations centered around the cost of providing that position, and we proposed a $45,000 salary. So I've had the opportunity to do some checking, and the two organizations that I've heard back from, which are both local, are the City of Ottawa and the Ottawa Library. Both of them have positions that are comparable to this. The city's actually involves more IT along with the delivery of these services, and so it's actually a higher wage. But in talking with the director of their IT division, who is the supervisor for this position, said that $45,000 would be considered a starting wage for somebody with a marketing degree that's entering the workforce. The library has almost this exact same position with a very, very similar job description, and they're currently paying for that position $45,000 in salary. So I don't think we're out of line on the two salary requests. Bear in mind, we're not looking for somebody to deliver IT. We're looking for somebody that can actually lead a community in who we want to be and how we message that to a greater area to bring people to the community so that they spend their dollars here, stay overnight, and take advantage of our retail, restaurants, and all of that. So that is what we're trying to do with this position. So specifically, and for that, we added that position and we proposed a $30,000 management fee. So, and you asked for how those funds would be distributed. So on the next page, I tried to quantify that in dollars just a little bit. So, and as I reference the activities of the chamber, and I don't want to go down through them because you're all involved in chamber activities and know what we're doing, but I did bullet point, and that's on the last page, of things that we're currently providing and doing as a Chamber of Commerce. And some of these activities have grown to great proportions, or way more than what they were when we started them. But I just want to know that to deliver these services right now, we essentially have, for the year 2016, we essentially had 2 full-time employees. Bearing in mind that Sherry Lund was half-time because she also is an employee of FCDC, and that Brandon Wilcox was a college graduate, and we hired him at halftime going through 2016. Okay, so essentially 2, and then I was full-time. So we essentially had 2 full-time employees that did the delivery of these services. So now, as we add the scope of work that involves creating a vision, providing management of the tourism and travel industry, we're proposing and have made Brandon a full-time employee. So now his title is membership director, but insomuch that I've already described that we're a small staff, it's all hands on deck. I mean, he doesn't concentrate his activities on just growing membership. About half his time goes to helping deliver these services, because ultimately, to retain members, which is important for us, and to grow membership, we have to continue the expectations that we've set. So as we increase our scope of work and our responsibility, we have had to make him a full-time position. So that adds $12,000 of expense to our chamber budget. I've also budgeted staff increases for the rest of the staff, which comes to $3,600. And that's just to that's just to acknowledge that we're doing more, but also to help with the $3,600 really doesn't pay for any overtime, but we have had to consider more overtime just because of we're doing this and now we're doing this. So, but the $3,600 specifically is for staff raises. So the $15,000 that is acknowledging that I'm spending approximately 20 hours, which is less than half my time, but somewhere close to a third of my time, or a little less. This dollar figure will not flow to my salary, but will help with overtime dollars that we have in other staff, and just acknowledging that the time commitment shift from the chamber execution of helping with the workload of chamber activities. So we've got the chamber activities that I've defined on the back. We're adding the tourism duties. Now, as you look down through the list of activities the chamber is doing, and I think Commissioner Oglesby made this point a week ago, there is a close association with what one organization does that benefits the other organization, such as the Flea Junk and Trunk, which brought, I don't know, we estimated between $3,000 and $5,000, which is a range, but downtown was full the weekend of the Flea Junk and Trunk. Registration for vendors is going forward now. We're having great response again. So that is a great activity that benefits the whole county. Other activities you could identify as specifically as Ottawa, but bear in mind that up until this point, that's what our mission has been. I mean, we are the Ottawa Chamber of Commerce. As we expand, we're going to look to working, and I hope our proposal establishes that we want to make sure that we help all communities more greatly expose themselves, but the ultimate goal is to bring people into the greater community so that they spend their tax dollars, visit, and take advantage of our retail, restaurants, motels, all of that. That is the bottom line goal, and all of this speaks to that. And then also, in speaking of the $45,000 salary, I don't know that I made clear last week, but I want to make sure that I do this week that $45,000 is actually a three-quarter time tourism and travel industry position and one-quarter time chamber position. So let me describe what we're doing currently. Right now, we're in a contractual arrangement to provide social media and Facebook, and the provider also does a little bit of our electronic communications, AKA our monthly or bi-monthly newsletter. So we pay a contractual amount for that person to deliver the $12,000 is the contractual amount. And so now to change this to a one-quarter chamber salaried position, we're recognizing that we have a share of the benefits, and it costs just a little bit more. So the $2,000 which is an additional expense that were we to just continue on as we were without adding the scope of work, we would say it would be the same $12,000. We're adding $2,000 to our budget just to make this create this position. And I want to state one of the benefits we get from that by having a full-time position is to have somebody in the office. Now, when I say in the office, probably that position is going to be or will be housed in the visitor center. But it allows somebody on staff to be available to make changes in real time and to more aggressively market. Right now, when we see things that we need changed on our webpage, when we have an event we want to move immediately to social media, there is a 24-hour or so delay, but this allows us and will allow for both organizations to make change in real time. So there is advantage to adding a staff and having that person in the conversation when we have staff meetings on Monday morning, which involve all the CVB staff and all the chamber staff and FCDC as well. When we talk about what's going on, that person is in the conversation, hearing it, and can make suggestions, and so it adds to what we're proposing. So I've totaled the figures. You can see there it comes to 32.9 or 33. And so having said all that, I guess I would ask if you have any questions, and at some point I'd like to ask my executive committee if they have any comments that they would like to make too.
One of the things you're talking about potentially expanding in social media and things like that, would that include, John, the expansion of contracts with sponsorship or advertising for search engines that put the name out there or the community out there for people to find?
That is okay. Let me answer that in two ways. Just let me say yes first, okay? But right now we have the opportunity. We have the opportunity to sell sponsorships on web page, but we just do not have the staffing numbers or abilities to do that. So that's something that is not being pursued by either organization currently. So this position would be responsible for that. Banner ads on web pages, the ability to promote things that we approve of naturally, or organizations that we approve of, to have them.
Any idea what kind of income stream that would provide?
You know, I hate to take a stab in the dark, but, you know, sponsorships on web pages can run any place from $100, depending on what it is, to $2,000, depending on how it pops up when you click on the web page. So it's kind of an open book. I would hate to speculate, but there are dollars that this position could help generate. This position would also be responsible for seeking grants, specifically to expand the trail system. That's something that just is not or would not happen without this position.
So John, answer this for me. I may be missing something, and I apologize for not being here last week, so
No
I may be
worries.
asking something again. But, so you're talking about this $45,000. So are you telling me you're coming off this $74,068?
No, that reflects that.
That's going to stay at $74,68
It
on
will.
this request?
The only thing that will change on that budget that you're looking at, and this was a request to more closely delineate a line item, was the accounting and legal. I am counting $8,000 to accounting, and there's going to be the addition of $1,000 to legal, just because we could have contracts that we want reviewed with. We're entering into several contracts now with, or considering several contracts with printing companies, distribution companies for the guidebook, et cetera. So just so that I don't get caught off guard by having nothing in there, I have asked our accountant to give me a hard number on an accounting number, and they have not responded, and I realize this is a busy time of year for them. I get that. But the $8,000 that I came up with is reflective of what we're doing as the chamber currently. Currently, our accounting bill, we sign a memorandum of understanding for $10,000 with our accounting firm. And for that, I provide I make the deposits and then provide the line item accounting numbers to them for the income numbers, and I do the same for the expenses. I collect the invoices. I, in a spreadsheet, differentiate to what line item I want them accounted. So then they provide all the financial reporting to the board of directors. They write all checks. They make they're available for financial consultation as I need them. And so one time, I'm sure some of you remember, we actually hired a full-time position that was salaried at approximately $50,000, and we eliminated that position and went with a contractual arrangement with an accounting firm, which saved us money, but it increased the workload of what we do in-house. So that's the contract that we have with them now, so I'm not anticipating that would be greatly different, but I don't have a hard number. So the budget you have doesn't reflect the addition of $1,000 for attorney fees, which I, in final proposal, intend to put on there.
Well, just one issue I'm having with this is, for years, the Visitor Bureau was ran by Christy Lee and volunteers with help of her board out there. And now we've turned it around to me with the management fees and so forth. Now it appears it's taken like 5 people to run this. I mean, we've got, talking about Brandon going full-time, we got some of your staff it's taking, we've got Susan out there, we still got volunteers out there. Sure looks like we picked up a lot of people to do the same job that these others were doing for a lot more money in administration fees.
So let me characterize it just slightly different. Here's how I would say it. First of all, Christy had a full-time employee, and I'm not certain what her salary was, but I'm thinking it was in the neighborhood of 60, 55, 60. I'm not certain on that. So but I'm ballparking it. And then she had a full-time, what she called marketing director, that was in the 30,000 range, I believe. So the salary expense for that organization was higher at that time. Now, I am not proposing that Sherry and Brandon are going to be working full-time for the tourism and travel. I am saying that we're a small staff, and when activities are happening, it's all hands on deck. And in so much that we expand our services, we'll expand that school of thought too. But what I am suggesting is that right now I am in a full-time position helping the chamber deliver services, and now my attentions are divided. And so if currently, if we don't do anything, I still remain full-time with the chamber, and in so much that it's all hands on deck when we're doing any of our activities. I'm a part of I'm part of the workload that's part of the staff that's helping deliver the workload. And now, with my attention spread, I don't have that opportunity to bring that much, or as much as I have in the past, to perform activities that our current membership, the level of activities that our membership have grown to expect. So because of splitting my duties and increasing my responsibilities, I've had to increase my staff at the chamber, and am acknowledging a increase in pay for doing that. And so so that is a big part of what that $30,000 management fee is. Really, it is the big part.
Commissioner Howard, and I just want to be perfectly clear with this, and to kind of get down to brass tacks. And I gave Jean my budget, so I don't have it in front of me, but to be clear, it is my belief that the most TGT dollars that have ever went towards salary and or personnel related costs were $82,000. And I believe that that was an outlier, but nevertheless, I think in 1 year that much was spent. John's proposal would have $104,000, $105,000 of TGT money being spent on salary and or other personnel related costs. So you're looking at roughly, what is that, a $22,000 difference in salary and or personnel related costs. So, I mean, we can characterize that any number of ways. That is simply the brass tacks of it all, so.
And I didn't bring the budget either, because I wanted our discussion to stop where we left off last week and better characterize. You'd asked specifically for the breakdown of the 30, and that's what I've tried to provide. And so to hear what your concerns are, I mean, I hope that part of what you're paying for is increasing the vision and the scope of delivery of services. We're not wanting to do exactly what was done before. And when we put our proposal together, I swagged a budget, and I told you last week it was coincidentally $155,000. The budget that I've put forward now, I feel is better quantified, that I can back it up with reliable conversation and document. I don't know if you want line items documented. You specifically asked for attorney fees and accounting, and I'm telling you that I'm going to increase that line but split it, so it'll be $8,000 and $1,000, so that $1,000 would flow directly to the bottom line and would reduce the net income by $1,000.
So you're adding 1,000.
Yes, to the expenses, but not to the,
And rent is not included on there either.
yeah.
Which
is another
we
1,000 or
charge the
so.
former vendor $1,200 a year. I would anticipate keeping that the same. So $2,200 would need to be added on to this, or $157,200 would be their current proposal, as I understand.
So was the intent today just to explain the management fee, or to propose a second budget?
Well,
a
why don't
revised budget?
I allow my executive committee to speak now to fill in any blanks that I've left, but
Well, I'm trying to understand what
Okay.
the point is, what we're doing here.
I'll let them speak. But I think at the end of the day, when I met with them, they're trying to get their hands, or they're trying to understand, like you're trying to understand, that we put together a proposal and we said, this is our deliverables. And for these deliverables, we need $155,000. So if you're wanting to negotiate the payment of $155,000 down, they want to understand, what do we take off the deliverables list? Because we can't do all of that for less. And that's what I'm trying to say here today. So if you want us to reduce a budget or come back with a smaller budget, then the negotiation / the conversation needs to center around, what do you not want to happen, so that we can make a determination of what we would take off on that. We think what we've proposed is close. We think we can deliver this budget with these proposals. If you want to negotiate it for less, we need to know what comes off the deliverable list. So
I think that makes sense. I think you guys put together a fine proposal, and it would be
Yeah.
a good service. I'm just not sure we can afford it, especially since we have some of the liabilities associated with owning the building now. We just probably, I think the sense I'm getting from our board is that we just need to purchase less service. You know, it's like we can't always fill up your gas tank when times are tough. We may need a 3/4 of a tank to get us down the road. So we don't disagree that the service proposed is a good one, and I understand what you're saying, and I think that's a conversation we'd be happy to have.
I would propose that a very good, very logical starting point is that $45,000 marketing position. I think it would be very reasonable to say, yes, we value that, but we don't value $45,000 worth of that. Maybe half of that, which cuts $20,000, $25,000 right off the top, still allows the chamber to do social media marketing, thus accomplishing that purpose, albeit perhaps not at the same level. But we could state here publicly today that the chamber is not going to be able to market social media at the same level on $22,000 as they would $45,000. But I think people understand that. You go from 157 down to 132. Based on what little I've heard here publicly, that seems like a very palatable number perhaps for this board. That gives us the cushion that we need to take care of the capital needs out on the building that we own. If there's a roof that needs replaced, we've got the money to do it. We want to put a septic system in out there, we've got the money to do it. You accept this proposal right here, we might be using property tax dollars in order to do that. And I just cannot advise you as the board to put yourself in that situation when TGT dollars are a perfectly acceptable and proper use for those capital needs for the visitor center. So that is where I would encourage starting the discussion. How much do you value, and on what level do you value social media and marketing there?
I will say that privately I've said to Derek, so I know this isn't catching him off guard, but maybe one thing we should consider is a % of the total. That way, for instance, and I'm not suggesting a %, but if we hit it out of the park, you know, and all of a sudden we've increased hotel stay by 25%, let's just dream big, and the transient guest tax goes up, then we, through our efforts, know we have more funds to use, as does the county. If we leave the putt short, a term that I've used here before, then we're hampered in our budget but still have the expected deliverables. So a % of the total might be a way to consider. Derek really hasn't expressed to me if he thinks that's a good idea or a bad idea, but I've mentioned it, and I said I might mention it today, so.
Let's date before we marry.
And that's
I think
fine,
this is a
but-
good chance,
yeah.
it's one-year contract to, you know, and I fully believe you'll do great things, and at
Yeah.
that point, you know, we're a open-minded board that's able to see what a good investment was, and I think we'd be ready to double down at that point, but again, let's date before we marry. So what Derek threw out.
I apologize.
Yeah, what is everybody's thoughts on what Derek?
I would like my executive board just to have an opportunity to speak. Is that appropriate, or do you want to?
Let's get some.
Okay.
This'll, I think what they really want is feedback, and we'll
Okay.
get a little bit of that, and then they can come to us.
Okay.
Could I ask this question then, Derek? Is it possible to go with a lesser amount built in with, let's say they hit it out of the park with a bonus feature that,
It is an annual agreement. If they hit it out of the park, then next year we increase the amount in a commensurate amount with respective to how much they've hit it out of the park. I mean, if this were a 5-year agreement, I would certainly look more at some kind of bonus structure or incentive structure. However, when you're going to be renewing this on an annual basis, I think each year you look at how they did, and then you adjust that amount accordingly. I have said to John over and over, and I want his executive board to hear, this is the first year that we are trying to contract with the Chamber of Commerce. Obviously, if they do a fantastic job, it would behoove us for our constituents to increase that amount so that they continue doing a good job with more. But as it stands, I can't encourage you guys to give them the full amount when we've never had this relationship with them before, or it's been 15 years since we have.
and it's going to be you're going to have to look at these numbers in a special way, because we're looking at, this is March, we're looking at maybe 2 months of extension before they get the full possible benefits of flowing with the capital that they're requesting to be able to do the things that they want to do. So it may be difficult to even evaluate after a year, because you might be only looking at 6 months.
I would say from our perspective or point of view, I would like what the negotiated set of deliverables ultimately ends up being associated with the agreement, so that people aren't saying, well, here was your proposal. I think it would be necessary that somehow to connect it in one document saying that this is what we're paying, this is what we expect to receive. In other words, duties to be delivered by the chamber.
And I think that is a fantastic idea, which, to tie that back in with my original suggestion or thought for the board, if you just cut down on their amount for a social media marketing person, you're not changing the service, you're just changing the level at which you expect that service to meet. So effectively, you're not changing a whole lot other than expectations. The core service generally remains the same, albeit at a lesser level.
I think this is something that's going to be very hard to tell whether you've hit it out of the park by just, I mean, you can throw some numbers out that you've had hits on your webs or whatever, but I mean, I think it's something that's going to be really hard to tell whether you're really hitting it out of the park. I mean, if you can't find a place to park downtown because tourists are all down there, then, maybe, I don't mean, that's not being realistic, I don't think, but so I think that's going to be a tough thing to tell.
There are two numbers, I think, that help tell that story, and not exclusively, but motel stays, and which we know, absolutely we know, and sales tax. Now, granted, our sales tax has been trending up, so that's not a sole or true indicator, but, and the types of items that we're talking about tend to not be large items like cars, things like that we're going to bring to the community, but restaurants, retail, even, as people overnight, grocery and some of that. I don't know if we can boil it down specifically to those sales tax numbers or not, but I think motel stays is a very fair quantification. If we start to increase, and it would need to be in aggregate, recognizing, I mean, we could have a new hotel, so then that changes it, but I mean, it needs to be per capita, I guess would be a better way, but as a suggestion I agree with you, Commissioner Howard, we couldn't just say, well, there was 5 less parking spots today, so. Yeah, I appreciate that.
And I got one last thing, and I'm finished. My only, one concern, and then we can hear from your board if whatever, but one statement you made that, with the chamber and it's, with your employees at the chamber, it's, if something comes up and you're working on chamber, it's all hands on deck or so forth. I just think that we gotta kind of make sure that we're kind of keeping track of the fact that the transient guest tax is being used for tourism and not to basically take care of running the chamber and the tourism at the same time. I think they're different organizations. When we went into this, we went into it with the chamber running the visitor bureau center, and that transient guest tax going to that.
Well, and while I certainly agree with that, I would tell you, Commissioner Howard, that for the same reason that the chamber is what I believe will be a great vendor for this service and a logical vendor, it's also going to be a little bit hard
I know, I agree.
to keep track of that because the missions are in so many ways similar. I don't want to place unfair expectations on John or the chamber, for him to specifically delineate how all of this time is spent, because so much of what both entities do is designed to help promote tourism. So I think it's a great thought, and I agree with it, but we have to go into it with that in mind, so.
I've made a note, though, of your comment. I think it's a fair comment. We'll work quantifying, how we're working staff time. I would say that my thought would be that would flow back more than it would flow forward. In other words, I think because, albeit we just have one full-time employee out there than what time I commit, I think it would be more logical to think under the current arrangement that we would help there as much, we would not, Susan would still be expected to provide all the services out there, and she doesn't have anybody that she can commit to helping with the chamber. I guess it's just another way of saying it. But with a new time position, we would have to be careful, and I concur on this. If we hired another position at 45, we would need to make sure that person was spending more than a majority of their time on CVB activities. That is a very fair characterization. And I agree with that.
Any comments on what Derek's proposed or kind of thrown out for us to think about? Halving the marketing position, which would in effect bring the gross transient guest tax to 135, that neighborhood?
Well, what is a guest tax now bringing in? What's that number? Do you have it, Janet?
I have it saved here, just a second. I'll see if I can.
The thing that Derek has proposed is obviously one of them that is a variable. A lot of these others are fixed expenses, and there's not change in those. You can't change those figures there. They're going to be actuals.
Well, it also gets you through that first year where you start to find those cost-saving places, I think, too, that I think are still there.
I mean, this one just popped up
Yeah.
with the printer that I characterized, and if, really it happened in March, so technically it shouldn't have even been mentioned in today's report, but you specifically had mentioned that, and I think we'll discover those things going
I
forward.
think you will, too.
Roy, our last report doesn't add it all up, and they're not all reporting yet for the fourth quarter. So it would take some time to get that all figured out. I mean, I'm happy to do that for you guys and send that to you, what we did get last year. So, but we don't have it all reporting yet, because some of the hotels, most of the hotels have not paid December yet.
In past
So,
years, it's varied from 140 to 170. Is that
yeah,
a fair range?
that's pretty fair, yeah.
Madam Clerk, could I request that information too when you
Certainly.
file? Thank you.
The other thing I would add, as the next item on the agenda is a 60-day agreement, I think this discussion is proper and would like to continue it, but a decision does not need to be made today. And in fact, I'm sure John's executive board will need to discuss this as well. So I think don't feel pressure to, come up with an exact hard line amount today. Certainly, it's your prerogative if you wish to, by all means, but we do have that next agreement that we're going to get in place.
So,
I guess it would be helpful for us, assuming we're going to continue the conversation past today and get to a 60-day agreement that's on your agenda item, if you could communicate your strongest desires to the county administrator and allow us to kind of come to an agreement so that we can build a budget on the agreement that, or on the deliverable of services that I can bring back to you saying, here's what we negotiated for services, here's what we negotiated as a budget to deliver these services. If that's helpful, I mean, that way we're not negotiating the final contract here today. Gives you an opportunity to establish with your administrator what your expectations are, and then it gives us an opportunity to respond to that by building a budget for that.
trying to get you some guidance and feedback. We have a couple nods on this side of the table as far as to what was thrown out about, by Derek, as far as, that you're fine with that, Roy? Okay, so you mentioned your executive board might like to come up and speak.
Do any of you have anything you want to say?
Yeah, I just want to clarify a couple things. Not real sure why we're even still here, honestly. Because when we started this whole process, you guys accepted a proposal, correct, from the chamber to run the CVB, right? Out of all the proposals, you went with the chamber's proposal. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, we agreed to enter negotiations.
Right, and in that proposal, there was a budget for $155,000
No.
that was in that original proposal. Isn't that correct, John? Am I mistaken?
correct.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
There was also a conversation, though, and I'd be happy to get that to you, that
Right.
at that point, we said,
But
this
if-
is more than we can
For that
afford. Would
proposal,
you-
for those deliverables, we figured it was gonna be about $155,000,
But
correct?
we asked, point blank, that's more than we can afford. Would you be able to pare down that proposal to something we
Okay,
can
and in
afford? And the
fairness,
answer was yes.
When you deliver goods and services, I mean, we keep talking about this management fee, you expect to be compensated for it, correct? Whenever you do anything, whatever your job is, whatever your work is, you guys aren't sitting up here out of the goodness of your hearts for the good of Franklin County, you're being compensated for the work you're doing, correct? Just like the chamber is gonna expect, if we're gonna manage a CVB, we expect to be compensated for it.
We're not asking to come down on that. It was
Because we're not gonna suffer the chamber's vision and work at the expense of the CVB. So I don't know where we need to get to, but for me, just speaking for myself, is we need to come up with something, because this has drug out way too long.
And in all fairness, the proposal that I believe my board has just made does not touch that management fee.
Okay.
It doesn't. And while I certainly understand that the initial proposal was 155, and I would be happy to pull the video of the meeting and send it to you, a discussion ensued regarding it likely being too high and there being the need for negotiation, to which your director responded affirmatively that negotiation could be had. That is exactly what is occurring today, is negotiation. Like
Okay.
this, there's nothing improper about this. I don't believe my board members are now questioning your management fee. We asked John to delineate that, he did, and I don't see my board asking questions about it. I think their proposal is, let's taper back the social media marketing, see how that goes, and if it goes well, then that is an opportunity next year to up that again and go from there. But certainly, I don't think the management fee's in question right now, so.
Okay, fair enough.
The part that I wanted to mention, Commissioner Waymire mentioned if we do half, if the CVB committed to half of that marketing position, the current budget reflects that the CVB would only be fronting 3/4. And so if you went to half, that wouldn't be a $20,000 savings, that would only be a $10,000 savings off of what the current budget is, which would put you around 145 rather than 135. I also want to clarify that that position is not someone that would just sit at a computer and do Facebook and Twitter and those types of things all day. There's a lot of other components to that staff person, as John mentioned, including grant writing. With positive grant writing experience, you of course have that 10% administrative fee that you can collect out of a grant that can go back towards that grant writer's salary. If you don't stay up in that $45,000 range as far as a salary person, and you get someone that can just take care of that social media, you're not going to have the quality of social media, and you're also not going to, I don't believe, be able to find someone who has the skill set in grant writing that we need, not only to supplement their salary, but to achieve the initiatives that we're looking for as far as a trailhead and being able to accent that part of our community. To me, that is a huge, huge challenge. If you look at the transient guest tax that's collected from the visitors to the Visitors Bureau, you could never keep that building open with the transient guest tax that was collected by its in-person visitors, or even adding the people that call on the phone, as I'm sure you all are well aware. What we have found, not only personally for me and my business, but also in our chamber in the last 5 years, is that having a strong social media presence and strong social marketing presence has been our bread and butter. It's been our sole form of advertising. It's been what has brought in our new customers. It's what's brought in the chamber new members, greater participation at events. It concerns me greatly to think about reducing the quality or reducing the amount of effort that is put towards that initiative at this time in our age, as far as where our potential customers are lurking. My ongoing statement is, we know that people are going to be wasting time on social media. I want them wasting time on our content.
And I guess I just have to agree with Sean. Every one of us carries this around with us, and this is where everybody is getting their information today. And you can tell that, every one of you, I'm sure, goes down the road and you say, hey, I'm going to go somewhere. You get on your phone and say, where am I going? What's there for me to do? It's all done here. If we don't have a good social media, it's the services are going to suffer.
That social media is where the additional transient guest tax dollars are going to come from.
I think we agree on everything, both sides of the table that was just said. We understand the importance as well. And maybe there's something on the physical side that, as you've indicated, just isn't seeing the returns that it used to, isn't the asset that it used to, that could be pared back. I guess our message that we want to get, we can only afford $135,000. We need $135,000 worth of service. Now, maybe, what's the first thing you would recommend scaling back to get there?
Well, let me say this. It was helpful for me to have this group here this morning, in so much that I speak for the chamber, but I answer to a board of trustees, just as Administrator Brown answers to you. And in so much that we negotiate, I'm going to have to take that agreement and that budget associated with it back to my board, as is he going to have to take that to you. So I appreciate them taking time to come today just to make it blatantly clear that I don't have full reign. I mean, I've been given direction, and I'm trying to deliver that for the entire board of trustees, which is near 20 in number, and these 4 speak for them. But I want you to understand that I'm negotiating under their direction, as is Administrator Brown under yours. So that's been helpful to me. And maybe we just leave it right there and we have the opportunity to speak. Is that?
I will defer to the board as to whether or not they have anything else, but I think we generally understand where we're at.
Mm-hmm.
I do have one other inquiry. Madam Clerk, would you have an approximation handy as far as what the current county's TGT fund has in its deposit?
I don't. Trying to pull up some reports on that.
That's a number that I feel might be helpful as far as we look forward looking at what?
We started 16 with $31,000 in it.
Okay.
As a balance.
Okay.
So, I mean, it's not,
Not tremendous.
No,
And there's
not by any
no
means.
other savings accounts or anything like?
that was 16, yeah.
It's not a roof.
So, and that was, why the commission did what they did with the tourism dollars last year, because $31,000 is probably barely gonna put a roof on the building if we need a roof.
Sure.
And not to mention the septic tank that's been discussed and stuff, so, I would say we had budgeted 47,000, I believe, and we had, scaled that down from 165, I believe. So we were expecting to put a little over $100,000 in there last year. So without pulling that report, I would say we're somewhere around 130.
Well, hopefully, we're negotiating in good
Yeah,
faith. We
we
want to
are.
do business with you. I sensed a little frustration from you, and I'm sorry, that's not our intention.
How come I
You
don't
know,
bring
as
them
you go
every
down the
time?
list, as you go down the list, there's really
Yeah.
what do we disagree on? I mean, you
Yeah.
have a hard time answering
Right.
that question,
And
except
just
for that
clarifying
last.
We're at 135, because I don't think we had a number, actually, we were trying to get to until just now, did we?
Well,
I
By
mean,
the time we factor
I-
in what we expect that building, there's some needs,
Yeah.
as you probably know, and.
before we
that's
say a
just where-
number, I'd like to have closer conversation with the county administrator.
I'm not
Uh,
asking you, I
yeah.
don't think anybody's asking you to commit
Yeah.
here and there,
Yeah.
but,
Yeah.
we appreciate you being here, we appreciate, Sean did an excellent job of articulating it, but,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
If I can add to that, I think you all did an excellent job, and please understand, we are dealing, it's just that these are taxpayer dollars. I mean, they have agreed to be stewards of taxpayer dollars, and if they sit over here and are pushovers, then they are not good stewards of taxpayer dollars. Certainly, there is a palpable excitement to do business with the chamber, and I think I've communicated that to
have,
you on
very clearly,
numerous
and I
occasions.
appreciate that.
They and myself, on behalf of them, are just trying to ensure that we are doing our due diligence. It's nothing more or nothing less than that, so
and we're,
please.
we're ready to pay for the service we get, we're not looking
Yeah.
to do anything on the back of the chamber, we just can only afford some X dollar of service, so. Well,
Thank
thank
you.
you, thanks for.
Thank you, appreciate it.
For that.
Okay. Do I need to remain for the next
You
conversation?
can, yeah.
I'll just be here.
Okay.
The third item of business would be the 2-month agreement we've referred to with the chamber for the services, tourism services.
Yeah, this is almost an exact template of the agreement that we entered into at the end of 2016. Obviously, the dates have changed. It's a 60-day agreement. Gene had a question about the amount. It is $10,000 each month for March and April, which is commensurate with what our first agreement was. Beyond that, I believe everything else in there is exactly the same. We've seen this before. It's just a continuation so that we have a little bit more time to iron out what the budget amount in an annual contract would look like.
If I could just mention one thing, the person in my office that does accounts payable, Debbie, and I discussed it this morning before I left for the meeting, and we are actually paying, when you look at the books, it looks like we're paying the month in advance, because like John mentioned, when our accounts payable cycle is to get them their money at the beginning of the month to provide the services for that month, we actually have to write the check at the end of the month before. So if you look at it, it looks like in January, we paid them $20,000. We didn't. We paid them $10,000 for January and actually cut the check in January for their $10,000 for February. So just to clear that up in case anybody sees any reports or anything like that, that's what we're doing right now.
I could even answer that. She characterized it exactly right, but I specifically held that check and deposited it in February so that in our financials, it shows in February. And then that 5,000, actually, there was a $5,000 check and then another $10,000 check. And that was just because we didn't have carryover that we needed to get the month started. It looks like you're paying in advance, but remember on January 1, we started at 0. We didn't have a fund. So,
All right. Any
So they haven't
questions?
been paid March in?
What's that?
They haven't been paid anything for March?
In February, they were paid $10,000 for March.
For March.
So we have a check that's set to run right now, right here at the end of the month, the last day of the month, that will go to them, which would be,
So
that
they'll
we will not send out until you guys approve this 60-day agreement, but we had to get it in the check run to go. I mean,
So our 60-day agreement's going to be for April and May.
All right. It's very similar to the.
we do have a public comment.
Okay.
We have 2 public comments on this item. Harry is the first one, Harry Peckham.
Yeah, Harry Peckham at 4567 Marshall Road. I operate 3 different agritourism activities just north of Rantoul. I've been advertising in the Franklin County Visitor's Guide for years. I usually almost always have it in hand by now. John says he can get it out in August. Don't really think that's adequate. Most of these trade shows he was talking about, like the Kansas Sampler, take place in the spring. You need that visitor's guide then to be handing out and distribute there. Also, I am a member of the Ottawa Chamber of Commerce, and I've had experience with some of the projects they do. They took over a year to get a 2016 membership guide out. They ended up being a 2017 visitor's guide out, so I'm not real sure he can actually get it done by August if you set him up and got him going. I also advertise in the Miami County Visitor's Guide because that's where a significant number of my guests come from. They contacted me in November about renewing my ad. I had the Miami County Visitor's Guide in hand the first week of January, so I know it can be done in 2 months or so. So what I'm really, I think, proposing today is I would like to see you or even the chamber, one of you, make a decision, yes or no, on going forward with this agreement so that our promotion of our activities here in Franklin County can have a basis to go forward and know what we're doing. Thank you.
Jean?
Gene Hurt, 107 Jefferson Street, Pomona. Now, the letter of proposal you have for them to agree is what's in that document, correct? That I had, okay. So that means, and make sure that we're clear on this, so I am and everybody else out there is listening to all this, so we all understand. The $10,000 will be for both April and May, or is it 10,000 for April and 10,000 for April and May? Well, each month separate. April 10,000, May 10,000.
10,000 a month.
Total value of 20,000.
Okay, it should have been said that way, but that's okay. That's what I wanted to find out there. So, anyway, I hope everybody gets this ironed out. But I don't know whether it will or not, in my mind. I see all these, and the $8,000 is what John indicated, what they're doing with it now for the illegal and accounting. But how are you going to approve this today? You going to approve this today with the amounts for the 2 months or for the whole letter? If you're going to do the whole letter, you better read it, because how can you do with what you did before? And besides, see, you denied me so far of not reading that letter of that part that I asked for in the previous deal. So I hope, that's really something. Those people need to know what you propose. What's the matter, Waymire? You're looking at him and winking at him. What is this about? You need to do the people's job of what's there, because we had no idea of any of us with the internet in the shape it was this morning either. My concern is for getting it right and for the huge amounts of costs that was presented. Thank you.
Gene, I'm not exactly sure what you're referring to, but let me just state that yourself, as well as any member of the public, is willing to have full access to whatever it is in my possession or the board's pertaining to this contract with the chamber or tourism services generally. I don't know what letter you're talking about, but certainly after the meeting, if you want to help me understand, I will make sure to get your hands on that letter.
And I'd just like to say publicly on the video so everyone can hear it, I am the Freedom of Information Officer for the county. I'm happy to provide anything that's provided at the meeting to the commissioners that was not previously on the agenda. That becomes a public record and it's held in my office. I'm happy to, upon request of an open record, I will be happy to email that to anyone that is interested in having any of these documents that have been provided here to the commission. So,
All right. Is there a motion to enter into the 2-month agreement with the chamber for tourism services?
I make a motion, we approve the 60-day agreement for months of April and May in the amount of $10,000 for each month.
Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Renaud?
Yes.
Commissioner Oglesby?
Yes.
Commissioner Dunn?
Yes.
Commissioner Howard?
Yes.
Chair Waymire?
Yes. Our fourth item of business is consider approving an amendment to a condition of a resolution for a special use permit. Larry Walrod, our Planning and Building Director, will elaborate on the details.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you've indicated, this item is a consideration for amending condition number 4 of a previous resolution that approved the special use permit for the Martin Marietta Materials operations located there north of Sand Creek. At the time when the resolution was adopted in 1998, it appears that some of the codes that we are currently using in making recommendations to the Planning Commission and the County Commissioners regarding the operations of quarries and mining activities weren't in place at that time. And after reviewing the request that we received from Martin Marietta, we did a research to going back through all the records, and I think most of those are attached as a part of your staff report. But in going back, I can't find that there was any specific requirement from the state or other agencies that required the 500-foot setback from buildings. What I have found, though, is some new information that addresses the monitoring of the charges, that there is a blasting seismographs that are required today. And there also are some guidelines that are set up, and those are identified, I think, in the information that's in your staff report, that under the Explosive Materials Code, it's adopted through the State Fire Marshal's Office, that gives specific requirements for the setbacks. If you look at the graphs that were attached as a part of that, the setbacks are going to be not just a set number, but are going to be based on the size of the charge, the number of the charge, the depth of the charge, and the density of the materials that the charges are going into. So there are a whole lot of other factors that would provide additional requirements in terms of the setbacks that are required then for blasting. After reviewing these, staff feels very comfortable that, as we have recommended in the attached resolution, that the modification to that condition number 4 would be appropriate. And I think that's on the last page of the information that I've provided to you is a draft resolution that addresses that condition number 4. It would reduce it from the 500 foot from all existing buildings to 160, provided that they also satisfy the other requirements, and that is if there was a charge that was in materials that might require something a little greater than 160 feet, but if they can comply with those, we feel that we would still satisfy the intent and purpose of the original condition. The representatives from Martin Marietta are here if you have any questions.
I got one question, Larry. Isn't the quarry required to have a berm around the quarry for material?
I think that that is one of the conditions that was addressed in here.
How does that affect the setback?
That's,
They would have to have a berm between the building and the quarry operation itself.
not necessarily the buildings. There is a 100-foot setback for the berms and other things relative to property lines. So it would depend on where that property line is, Roy, rather than the building itself. That is a condition that's in the original, and that condition would still be in force and effect. I'm trying to think what condition it was. That was condition 5. So there are some berms that are required, there are some setbacks that are required relative to the property lines, which I found somewhat, I guess, in opposition to the 500-foot setback for a building when you only had to have a 100-foot setback from a property boundary or a public right-of-way.
It seems like a lot of it out there is not meeting that requirement for a berm around the quarry as they're expanding. So I don't know how this would play out.
I see some berms going in out there, but I don't know exactly the purpose of those. The representative from Martin Marietta is here. He might be able to address that for us, but
I mean, I thought they were for like reclamation, whenever.
well, the reclamation plans is an entirely different item and different issue, but berms, condition number 3 states berms to be constructed and to control access and screen adjacent properties throughout the various phases. And if you recall, the special use permit, I think, had a total of 3 phases on it. And this would be in that second phase.
Larry, have you received any complaints about the berms out there?
No, in fact, until fairly recently, the city had control of this site for 10 years. And until fairly recently, it's come back to the county. But we haven't received any complaints relative to the operations of a facility or any of the conditions that were previously imposed.
But today's resolution is only asking us to look at one item, and that is the distance of the
Blasting setbacks from buildings,
Right,
existing
and that's
buildings.
the only thing that we would be changing or addressing.
Here's the state regulations would do a far better job at protecting and quantifying the concerns that the setbacks inevitably were put there in the first place to address.
That's correct, and that apparently wasn't available back when the original special use permit was granted. So in doing my research on this, I found that this was a far better way of managing the setback distances rather than just calling out a specific number.
You bet.
It does include the support of the local residences there as well.
They
That's-
have endorsed the approval. This was submitted as a request for variance.
Right.
Unfortunately, variances are granted by the Board of Zoning Appeals, and this would not qualify for the types of variances that they need to look at. This is a condition on a special use permit, so we had to come back and take a reevaluation of that condition relative to the requirements that we felt would be more appropriate for this, and that was the various fire codes that are adopted through the State Fire Marshal's office.
Do we have any questions that we need the representative from Martin Marietta to answer? I assume that's you. Do you have anything you need to share with us?
No, as far as the berms go,
Come on up if you want to talk.
the berms would be inside of our setbacks from our lease lines, just like what we normally have. And the blasting setbacks, this was pretty much designed for the Edwards house, which we have leases all around it, and they would like to get more of the rock out as well as us. So it's kind of a joint benefit.
All right.
I don't have anything. I just appreciate you being here, and I know you sat through a lot of other items to be here. Appreciate it.
Thank the board for hearing this.
All right, thank you. All right. Is there any other questions? Is somebody ready, willing to make a motion to approve this amendment to condition number 4 on the resolution number 98-49, for the special use permit 98-002?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Commissioner Oglesby?
Yes.
Commissioner Dunn?
I'm going to abstain.
Commissioner Howard?
Yes.
Commissioner Minode?
Yes.
Chair Waymire?
Yes. Our next item of business, item number 5, is to consider authorizing the planning department to solicit bids for a replacement vehicle.
As you've indicated, I have submitted a request to the county commissioners to authorize us to initiate the bids for a replacement truck. This item was discussed when you went through your budget last year. I think that you were aware that it was proposed that there would be a replacement vehicle, and the amount of that was set forth in the proposed budgets as part of the fleet budget. That's where this was to be funded. So what we would like to do now is to go ahead and move forward with that. It came out as a kind of something that we had anticipated, I think, but not expected so soon. The vehicle that's the maintenance department has, that's blowing a piston. So they needed a truck to help move furniture and a lot of other things. So I've given them my truck, and we're now going to be needing a replacement.
What was the total cost in that? I don't have it up here.
$27,000 what was budgeted.
How much was budgeted?
$27,000.
I imagine that was taken off of the state contract price.
I
Probably
think
where
that's
that
where
number
John
comes-
got that originally. Yes.
So, on the sheriff's vehicles, haven't we taken that contract price to a local vendor and they just matched it, and we purchase vehicles that way?
We have, and certainly we, we could do that here. I'm not sure we've approached a local vendor about that, and if we don't want to put it out for bid, we can certainly do that.
Because, of course, the state prices have been competitively bid at some point, so.
Right.
So we're still fulfilling that obligation, but I think on the leased vehicles, we went to Ottawa Ford and just offered them the state, knowing that that's the piece of
Right.
equipment we want, and basically saying this is a competitive price we have, will you honor it?
And I don't believe we've went to Ottawa Ford with that, have we?
With
I haven't
this
gone to
vehicle.
Ottawa
yeah.
Ford yet.
In the recent, that's what Jeff has done, taken the contract price out to Advantage Ford because it is a local dealer, and obviously we want to support people within the county, and they have agreed to honor it. Of course, that's to their discretion. So Shawnee Mission Ford is one of the vendors for the state contract. So if we wanted to do that, we could do that, and that would be up to you guys to.
Of course, there's other dealers too, and you're not as particular on the equipment you need. I mean, you need a pickup truck as opposed to the sheriff really kind of needs a.
Right, and mine's not a very specialty item. It's pretty much a plain Jane F-150.
My only thought is when we do competitive bid, inevitably it goes to a dealer in Johnson County, generally, so. But,
Well, and
would it be
certainly,
better to just, and it could be quicker, to approach, it would probably shave some time off publication and letting the bids. Would it be better to approach the local dealers as far as honoring that price?
yeah, I don't have an issue with that. I'm glad that we had this discussion because it obviously, I mean, we do have a bid policy for these types of purchases. However, given that we are dealing with an item that will be bid at the state price, I'm certainly okay. I would encourage us to stay in town if possible and approach Advantage with it. But yeah,
There's a Dodge dealer too. I imagine you could see if both of them even want to honor it. If one only does, then that makes it easy, but if both do, it would be up to you to assay both goods and see which one best fits your needs.
I mean, we know that's the rock bottom price, so it's,
Yeah.
I think we're good doing that.
So would a motion look something like allow the director to,
Yeah, I don't think we need a motion. I think the motion would come, I mean, Larry will come back with that, and yeah, when he's
Okay.
ready to buy it, he'll come back with that, and then you'll,
make sense? Does that work for you? You
Yes,
prefer that? I think it'd get you a vehicle quicker.
That'd be much simpler than having to go to bid and put it all over the
Saves some
countryside,
publication
right?
costs as well.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, so we'll table item number 6? Or do we need to table it or just let it die, or?
yeah, you're not tabling it because the item won't come back as approval to solicit bids, so just, it's done.
Okay, all right, we'll move on to item number, actually, it is 6, which consider approving chairman to execute an agreement in the federal funds exchange program.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Morning, Jim.
KDOT manages the Federal Fund Exchange Program, where we're able to exchange our federal funds for 90% state funds, which allows us to use them without the federal requirements. In order to exchange the federal funds, it's necessary to execute the agreement. We have done this as indicated on the attachment in the past, and it's my recommendation that we do it again. Excuse me.
Federal funds come with a litany of stipulations and special reporting, which really makes this more cost-effective way to use those dollars, doesn't it?
Yes, sir.
All right. Any questions for Jim? Is there a motion to authorize chairman to execute the agreement for the federal funds exchange program?
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Dunn?
Yes.
Commissioner Howard?
Yes.
Commissioner Renaud?
Yes.
Commissioner Oglesby?
Yes.
Chair Waymire?
Yes. Item number 7 is also with the Public Works Director.
Board of County Commissioners approved solicitation of chemical bids for noxious weed at your February 15th meeting. Bids were opened on March 20th at 8 a.m. in the noxious weed office. The request is a motion awarding chemical bids 3, 4, and 5 to CPS chemical bids 1, 2, and 6 to Van Diest, and half of bid 7 to both CPS and Van Diest, in that it's agency pricing, and so it was a tie.
All right. Questions for Jim? Is there a motion to approve awarding the chemical bids?
I'll make the motion to award the chemical bids as stated.
Second.
Commissioner Howard?
Yes.
Commissioner Renaud?
Yes.
Commissioner Oglesby?
Yes.
Commissioner Dunn?
Yes.
Chair Waymeyer?
Yes. Item number 8 is in regard to an equipment lease with the Public Works Department.
Our 2008 Kubota tractor has 6,186 hours, has PTO and hydraulic issues, which necessitates an estimated $13,922.27 in repairs. That estimate's included as an attachment. This is too much to spend repairing a 9-year-old tractor. The state of Kansas has a state bid price for a 6130M John Deere tractor of $94,601.76. With a powertrain warranty, the 5-year lease annual payment, $21,510.13. The requested action is a motion to enter into a lease agreement with Heritage Tractor on a 6130M tractor.
We usually don't lease this small of equipment. What made that advantageous for us? Why are we doing that?
Spread the payment out over 5 years, similar to what we do for motor graders.
Motor grader's $250,000. We just use on these smaller ones. We have
Our
annual-
cost for a motor grader is $126,000.
That's with trade-in, isn't it?
Yes. Cost of this is $100,000. It's similar in amount.
Okay. What are you planning on your capital fund this year? I guess we'll look at it that way. What are you planning on buying with it?
Budgeted this year is a replacement of the Traco, which is anticipated to be close to $250,000.
There's about $250,000 revenue
Yeah, that's
going in, so it'll wipe out.
268,500 is what we transferred at the end of the year.
So to answer the question, to maintain your balance in your capital fund, you're leasing,
Yes, sir.
choosing to lease this as opposed to
Yes, sir.
pay for cash. All right.
Lease comes out of my operating budget.
Okay. Any other questions for Jim?
What's the other tractor that you said is too much to repair? What are you going to do with that?
I anticipate it'll be on Purple Wave as is, where is, with the caveat that you can't make the back end turn.
So you're not going to get much for it?
Depends on the price of scrap, I guess.
Yeah. Well, it's Purple Wave. You may get quite a bit. Is there a motion to consider approving entering into a lease for the tractor for the Public Works Department?
So moved.
Second?
Commissioner Renaud?
Yes.
Commissioner Oglesby?
Yes.
Commissioner Dunn?
Yes.
Commissioner Howard?
Yes.
Chair Waymeyer?
Yes. Ninth item also lies with the Public Works Department, is regarding the purchase of motor graders.
As you recall, Franklin County has a 5-year, 7,500-hour buyback agreement with Foley Equipment for two machines. Recommendation is to purchase two 2017 120M2 all-wheel drive motor graders from Foley Equipment for $252,000 after a trade allowance of $271,000 for our two machines that are going to reach either the 5 years, 7,500-hour. One is due now, and one will be in August.
Routine business. Any questions for Jim? All right. Would somebody like to make a motion to purchase the motor graders per the agenda item?
Make the motion.
Second?
Commissioner Oglesby?
Yes.
Commissioner Dunn?
Yes.
Commissioner Howard?
Yes.
Commissioner Renaud?
Yes.
Chair Whitmire?
Yes.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thanks, Jim. Staff reports.
Commissioner Oglesby and I had a conversation here, and I don't even know how long ago it was, pertaining to grants for economic development. And that prompted Jimmy Haig and I to get together and start talking about our roads and how we're going to finance them. Yesterday, we had a teleconference with David Lee with PEC, as well as an employee with PEC that specializes in seeking grants for these types of projects. And currently, he is in the process of doing just that, and he hopes to have a report to us within a week or so. In that same vein, the city manager and I have a meeting Friday with an individual from the EDA, the Economic Development Administration, and we're going to have a similar conversation with this individual, just to make sure that, before we issue these bonds, that we've turned every stone in terms of potential funding sources for this. So with that, I have nothing else today.
Right. Dustin? No? All right. Any department heads? Jim, do you have anything? All right. Janet? Commissioners' comments, board reports.
I have not attended anything since the last meeting.
Nope.
All right. I believe that brings us to a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We're adjourned.